going to guide you through the method that you need to use when you want to work out whether two sounds in a language are separate phonemes or are allophones of the same phoneme. I have chosen a very simple problem just to illustrate the basic process. We have been given 10 words in Biblical Hebrew and we are asked whether the sounds k and ch contrast or are in complementary distribution. If we can show that the sounds contrast, that means that they are separate phonemes in the language, whereas if they are in complementary distribution, then this means that they are allophones of a single phoneme. Before we get started with the problem, I want to remind you that we follow this process as part of the overall process of working out the relationships that different sounds in a language have to another, so we can get a picture of what the sound system of the language as a whole is like. If two sounds share a number of features and only differ in one or two features, then we say that they are a suspicious pair. Suspicious in that because they are such similar sounds, this should make us suspicious that the two sounds might represent a single phoneme, but are just pronounced slightly differently depending on the position in a word that they occur in. On the other hand, they might be separate phonemes. We have been directed to examine the status of k and ch because they are a suspicious pair. They are a suspicious pair because they share most features. They're both consonants, so we indicate that they're both plus consonantal, and they have the same place of articulation. They're both velar, so they're both plus dorsal. They're also both voiceless, so we indicate that they are minus voice. They differ only in a manner feature. K is a stop, so it is minus continuant, whereas ch is a fricative, so it is plus continuant. So, let's get started looking at our data. For each of the sounds, draw up a table with 3 columns. In the center columns, you write an underscore. This indicates the position that the sound you are looking at occurs in. In the first column, before the underscore, you're going to indicate the sound that occurs before the sound in question for each word. In the third column, after the underscore, you're going to indicate the sound that occurs after the sound in question for each word. We start looking for the sounds word by word. In the first word, k occurs at the beginning of the word. In other words, nothing occurs before it. We indicate this with a hash sign in the before column. In this word, the sound that occurs after k is o, so we put this in the after column. We then do the same for the next word. K at the beginning of the word, again, so we put a hash in the before column. E after k, so we put e in the after column. Keep on doing this until you have found all the instances of k and indicated the sounds before and after. We then go on to do the same thing for ch, looking at the sounds before and after. The first word has u before ch, so we put u in the before column. In this word, ch is at the end of the word, so just like when k was at the beginning of the word, we put a hash in the after column. The hash symbol is standard notation that linguists use to indicate a word boundary, so we use it to indicate both the beginning and end of a word. We fill in all the before and after columns until we have looked at every word. So remember that the reason we're doing this is because we want to know what relationship the sounds have to each other. If they can occur with the same sounds before and after, then this means that the sounds contrast. If, on the other hand, they occur with different sounds before and or after, then this means that they're in complementary distribution. In certain environments, one sound will occur, and in other environments, the other sound will occur. It is something about the environment that determines which sound we get. So how do we work this out with this data set? We compare the before environments, the before columns for each sound, and then we do the same with the after columns, the after environments. Looking at the before columns, we see that they have absolutely nothing in common. In fact, it is quite striking that the k is only ever occurring at the beginning of a word. As I said, this is a fairly simple problem. The ch, on the other hand, occurs with several different vowels before it and with the approximant y before it. This is enough evidence to show that the two sounds are in complementary distribution. In a position in the word where we get one, we never get the other. At the beginning of the word, we don't get h, and after a vowel or y, we don't get k. We don't really need to look at the after columns now, as it is what is occurring before the sound that determines which sound occurs. K and h are in complementary distribution, so this means that they are both allophones of the same phoneme. We now have to write the rule that indicates the positions in which each allophone occurs. The first step is to work out which allophone should be chosen to represent the phoneme. We choose the allophone that occurs in the least restricted environment, in other words, with greater difference in the sounds that occur, in this case before, the allophone. K always has the same before environment, that is, nothing, the beginning of the word. On the other hand, we have examples of h with 3 different vowels before it, and with the approximate y before it. H thus clearly has a wider distribution, so we choose it as the allophone that represents the phoneme. We can now begin to write our phonological rule that accounts for the relationship between the sounds k and h in Biblical Hebrew. We start the rule by indicating the phoneme h between 2 slashes. We then put an arrow which indicates that that phoneme becomes the allophone in a particular environment. We then indicate the allophone with the most restricted environment in square brackets, here the k. Next we put a slash, which means in the environment of. Then we indicate the environment. In this case, the conditioning environment is before the sound, so next we put the hash to indicate the beginning of a word, and the underscore that indicates the position of the allophone. We then go on to put the environment for the other allophone. So again, we put an arrow below the other arrow. Then we present the allophone h in square brackets, then the slash for the indicate the environment, then we just write elsewhere. This means that the allophone h occurs in every other environment apart from the one that we have indicated for k. Let's just look at the before and after environments again to confirm that this is the correct thing to indicate. H can have a vowel before it, or the consonant y before it. It can occur with a vowel after it, or a consonant after it, or it can occur at the end of the word. This is a broad range of environments. The environment that h occurs in is not conditioned by any factors at all, so we just write elsewhere. This is what we usually indicate for the allophone that represents the phoneme. So this is what we need to give as an answer to this problem. The sounds k and h are in complementary distribution in Biblical Hebrew. And for the rule, h goes to k in the environment at the beginning of the word and goes to h elsewhere.